I drank beer with my friends. Sometimes I had too many beers. I liked beer. I still like beer. Had beers, have some beers. One beer, drink beer, drinks beer, drank beer, and drinking beer. You've probably had beers, Senator.
Each week, Ralph Club, biggest contributor.
You know, I got a weak stomach, whether it's with beer. I like beer.
You haven't answered that.
I like beer. I don't know if you do.
Okay.
Do you like beer, Senator, or not? What do you like to drink?
Next one.
Hanging out and having some beers with friends.
Join me, Matt Connarton, weekdays, 4 to 6 p.m. live for a discussion about politics where we put aside labels like liberal and conservative and have a discussion about truth and what's really happening in the world.
This hour on WMNH is proudly sponsored by CGI Business Solutions, located at 171 Londonderry Turnpike in Hooksett. Serving all your employee benefits planning, design and administration, investment and wealth management, and customized business insurance solutions. They are available at 866-841-4600 or on the web at cgibusinesssolutions.com.
You are listening to WMNHLP, Manchester's radio, broadcasting at 95.3 megahertz frequency modulation from the top of 1000 Elm Street. Our studios are located at 1045 Elm Street and licensed to Manchester Public Television Service in Manchester, New Hampshire, USA.
Republican legislators in Alabama look to be taking Roe v. Wade head on, and that's on purpose.
25 ayes, 6 nays, 1 abstention. House Bill 314 passes.
The new bill, which bans abortion in the state with just a few specific exceptions, separates itself from other states that recently enacted laws to chip away at the 46-year-old Supreme Court precedent. It does not make exceptions for rape or incest. But they all have something in common. These states want their laws to make it to the Supreme Court. And with a conservative majority, at least one of these cases may just do that. The Alabama bill will likely take the same path as many of the other state laws. Republican Governor Kay Ivey signed the law Wednesday. The law wouldn't take effect for 6 months, and in that time, a lawsuit is likely to be filed. It's expected to be blocked by a lower court and appealed all the way to the Supreme Court. But all of this won't happen overnight. In fact, the entire process could take several years. But justices have lifetime appointments, and that's something anti-abortion rights activists have been banking on since President Trump's election. On the campaign trail, he said he would appoint justices who would overturn Roe v. Wade, and he may have done that. Justices Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh are both staunch conservatives. Chief Justice John Roberts may be the swing vote on this one. In the past, he hasn't been supportive of sweeping changes to current precedent. Earlier this year, Roberts joined the liberal justices in staying a law that critics said could have left Louisiana with a single doctor to perform abortions. It's more likely that in the near future, as soon as October, the court could hear a more nuanced argument related to abortion rights. Several potential cases, including the Louisiana case, are being considered by the justices right now, and they could announce which ones, if any, they'll take up in the coming weeks.
Light and make it clear that it ain't my night. Do yourself a favor and stop having sex with me. If I insist on disappearing when the rabbit dies, there's a silicone rabbit that can sympathize. Remind me I'm redundant and stop having sex with me. Now if I keep coming after Roe v. Wade, make me sleep alone in the bed I made. Tell me, baby, that I got no chance, then prance around the house in yoga pants. If I'm having a hard time keeping things proper, throw a Kickstarter for a stopper. Remind me who's in power and stop having sex with me. And if you feel the need to let off steam, just a pinch hit for the other team. But please live stream and stop having sex with me. Now I don't know much, but one thing's certain. It's nice to take a little break and close the curtains. If you want to keep your rights, you gotta pull a page from Liz Estrada. Si quieres mantener tus derechas, tía, mantenga tu distancia de la verga mía. Usa tu poder y para este me joder a mí. I never knew just how it felt to never unbuckle the Bible belt. Exercise your options, stop having sex till I look at the world through estrogen specs. Someday I'll forgive you and stop having sex with me. No, not really.
It's Brian Stelter. There it is. Oh, my God. I mean, that is a horror movie cover. Seriously, he is scarier looking than It the Clown. I mean, would you let your children anywhere near that psychopath? I mean, that is a psychopath right there. I mean, look at him. God. Oh, I mean, it cries out, danger, danger, alert, alert. I am a scumbag. I am filth. I am your enemy. I would literally not be able to finish my dinner if somebody walked over and talked to me that looked like these two guys. And I'm sorry. They're not just lying anti-American scumbags that want to run us all on the ground because they're little men. They're pieces of crap. They think they're better than everybody. That's what it's about. It's the spirit of evil, and we must break them. Oh. I've tried to do joke photos like this to look disingenuous, and I can make any face I want to. I can't pull it off because the eyes, Chico. It's always in the eyes. Oh my gosh. Oh, hell on earth. He wants to run your life. He wants to control every aspect of your life because he knows he is a cowardly, degenerate sack of anti-human trash. I pledge before my Heavenly Father that I will resist them every way I can. These people are the literal demon spawn of the pit of hell. Look at him. And you know what? He is better than you if you keep letting him run your life. Jeez, he runs your kids. He runs the schools. He runs the banks. This guy, this spirit, this smiling, leering devil that thinks you can't see what he is your enemy. Period. All the narcissistic, devil-worshipping filth. I see you, enemy. I see you, enemy. 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 You are my enemy. And I swear total resistance to you with everything I've got. Disingenuous, fake, false, broke back, twisted, a defiler, a betrayer, a backstabber, a devil. You will pay. Yeah, you think I don't see your face, scum? You don't think I don't see you, Stelter? I see you. You understand me? I know what you think of me and my family. I see you right back. You understand that? You understand that, Stelter? Stelter. You will fall. You will not bring humanity down. God is going to destroy you. Get him off the screen. Oh, God, they're so evil. Just please, God, free us from them. They're drunk on our children's blood, for God's sake.
What a jackass. The shtick is, it sucks.
Hey, everybody, welcome. It's Matt Connarton Unleashed. We are live on WMNH 95.3 FM, emanating from downtown Manchester, New Hampshire. It's getting a little humid, a little humid in here anyway. Welcome, everybody, of course, on WMNH 95.3 as well as Comcast 97 if you're in Manchester. Streaming worldwide at WMNHradio.org and, of course, on Facebook via Facebook Live on the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page. And this browser is really acting funny, but let me see. Okay. Oh, it seems to be straightening out. Hello to, wow, we got a full house in there already. Hello to Rhonda in the Facebook live chat. I see Jenny. Dr. Jeff Cassell joins us. Fred Boenig from the Daily Ripple, who sent me that song, by the way, Ryan Schwartz, Stop Having Sex With Me, which is, of course, regarding what's going on in Alabama with the and other states where they're really trying to, they're not waiting for the Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade. They are, boy, I mean, they're tenacious. I'll give them that much, these folks. Hello to Ryan Gorman in the Facebook live chat. Gia is in there as well. Hello, and Tony Petrello also joining us. And you can join us. Of course, you can always interject and interact and so forth in the Facebook live chat, but you can also give us a call at 603-250-6007, 603-250-6007. And my friends, I have some frightening news regarding what's going on, this current movement to outlaw abortion with these laws where even in cases of rape and incest, nope, sorry, you're SOL. Very, very frightening. I'm, hello to Chris Rose. I am pro-choice, a bit tepidly so. And I say that only because, I have my own misgivings about it. And before we get to this story I'm about to share with you, well, actually, you know what? I'm going to save that for later. I heard something earlier today that was very interesting to me and surprised me a bit. But let's open with this, because I do have something truly shocking connected to this whole thing, and it's of great concern to me personally, as you could imagine, as someone who is pro-choice. I mean, and I've always fundamentally been pro-choice. But according to Rick Wiles, and this is from my favorite website, and hopefully yours, rightwingwatch.org, and you'll understand when I explain this why this is of such great concern to me personally. According to Rick Wiles, who's the End Times broadcaster, he hosts a show ironically titled True News, etc. We've talked about him many, many times on the show. He says that those who support reproductive rights will be, quote, aborted continuously by demons in hell. Wow. Now, I must tell you, my friends, again, I am pro-choice, but I am a little bit concerned about the idea of being aborted continuously by demons in hell. This is not something I'm entirely comfortable with. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, Matt, if you're pro-choice, you gotta stick to that. You got to stick to your guns, and I am pro-Second Amendment as well, but you got to stick to your guns and, and continue to, you got to stand by your principles and continue to advocate for your position regardless of the consequences. And don't back down and don't allow these people to threaten you, to demonize you, literally in this case, and to try to get you to back down, like the great Tom Petty song, I Won't Back Down. Many of you might be saying that. Well, those who agree with me and take the same position as I do might be saying that right now. But to you, I say, easy for you to say, how would you like to be repeatedly aborted by demons in hell? I mean, that's a lot to take in. I have to ask myself, is this really my hill to die on, so to speak? I know I'm mixing metaphors, but and I'm anti-war. But the point is, I'm a little concerned about this being continuously aborted by demons in hell thing. Look, it's one thing to, I'm willing to advocate for positions. I'm willing to vote, for certain people who I feel advocate those positions and so forth. But this whole thing sounds like it's a bit much even for me. I mean, I like to think I'm a strong person, but what if I don't have that same strength in the afterlife and I have to go through this, what Rick Wiles is claiming? I mean, this is genuinely frightening to me, my friends. So, Fred says, so does that include senators that voted to starve and bomb children in Yemen? I very much doubt it includes them, Fred. I get the impression, and you know, we'll listen to this audio together and we'll hear Rick Wiles explain himself. There's about 2 minutes of audio here, so we'll be able to, maybe it'll give us a more fuller picture, and we can kind of flesh this out a little bit. But my assumption is that Rick Wiles is probably pretty okay with the starving and bombing of children in Yemen. I'm assuming that Rick Wiles probably doesn't mind that too much and doesn't mind senators voting for that. You know, because, I mean, look, the kids in Yemen, I mean, really, I mean, you know, I know in theory we're all God's children, quote unquote, but, you know, this is America. We kind of count a little more, right? I mean, we are God's favorite. I mean, I think that's why we're a Christian nation, right? Fred says, I figure if God's chosen people are okay with it, it's okay with me. Oh, and then there's Fred shared a link in the Facebook, which is, we'll see if it'll open on my browser. My browser's running a little funny. Oh, I think this is actually going to open. Because he shared a link from timesofisrael.com, and Israel has a pretty liberal abortion policy. But this is America, Fred. This is America, and we, you know, I mean, that's other people's kids. So anyway, I think we should actually, the link is taking its sweet time opening, but we'll see. Because I do want to look at that. You know what? I'm going to try opening it in Firefox. I know it's fascinating listening to me talking about doing this and doing that with the computer. But anyway, well, while that opens, oh, here we go. Yep. It opened in Firefox. This is dated, we'll look at this quickly, and then we'll get to, just for context, and then we'll get to the audio from Rick Wiles, because I am concerned about, you know, what's going to happen to me in the afterlife. Forgive me if I sound selfish. I still care about women's reproductive rights. I promise you I do, but I gotta, you know, I mean, this has me kind of looking at things a little different, this idea of being continuously aborted by demons in hell. But, yeah, this is from back in 2014. Israel's abortion law, now among the world's most liberal. Despite its conservative leanings, government approves free pregnancy termination for nearly all women, and it barely causes a ripple. Israel, a nation with a forceful religious lobby and a conservative prime minister, is poised to offer its female citizens some of the most liberal abortion coverage in the world. The nation's Health Ministry Commission, led by Dr. Yonatan Halevi, last week announced its state-subsidized health basket, the package of medications and services that all Israel's citizens are entitled to under the nation's healthcare system. Sounds like Israel treats healthcare as a right instead of a privilege. Imagine that. It was approved by the cabinet on Sunday. The health basket is analyzed and amended on its annual basis, and among the many additional treatments to be offered to Israelis in 2014 are free-of-charge abortions for women ages 20 to 33. I wonder why 20 to 33. That's interesting. Gia says, science is out, crusades are in. America 2019. Oh, science schmience, Gia. How dare you? Science it's like sorcery. I mean, you know, you can do pretty terrible things with, you know, in the name of science. For example, you know, Satan puts these dinosaur fossils on Earth, and then, you know, all these quote-unquote scientists think there's, you know, the Earth is billions of years old or some crazy thing like that. Oh, my goodness. Anyway, I hope people realize I'm being sarcastic. Sometimes I get worried that, like, somebody brand new is going to be listening going, really, Matt is this guy's a creationist? No. I am a great purveyor of sarcasm and ridicule. All right, but I am genuinely concerned about this. Let's hear what Rick Wiles has to say about those who support reproductive rights, and this may apply to many of you. And I don't want to see any of you, to have this happen to you at the hands of demons in hell. So let's hear what he has to say. I'm sure this will be informative.
Please show me in the Constitution. Where is the clause in the Constitution that says a woman has the right to murder an innocent baby? A bunch of reprobates on the Supreme Court declared that a constitutional right to murder babies exists in our Constitution. There is no such right.
Well, that's quite the framing of it. That's not really what this is about. But, and by the way, something doesn't have to be in the Constitution for it to. This is a kind of a pet peeve of mine, and I am going to back this up to the beginning because we're fairly early in this audio, and I do want to take the whole thing in again, partly for selfish reasons. But people often conflate what is unconstitutional, because it sounds like he's making an argument that abortion is unconstitutional. I think that's what he's trying to say. He's putting a little bit of a different spin on it, and he's being very harsh with it. But people conflate unconstitutional with non-constitutional. So unconstitutional is something that directly violates the Constitution, at least by, Matt's definitions. Non-constitutional would be something that is not in the Constitution, but it doesn't violate the Constitution either. And there's all kinds of things that are non-constitutional, but, I don't think, for just a random example, I don't think there's anything in the Constitution about an interstate highway system, but we have one. It's not unconstitutional. No one's saying that having an interstate highway system violates the Constitution in some way. But you could argue it's non-constitutional. It's not in the Constitution. I don't think there's any, there might be something about right to travel in the Constitution, but I don't think there's anything in the Constitution that says, the country is to have these minimum 2 lanes in either direction highways that connect the entire country. I don't think that's in there anywhere, but we have it. Anyway, that's a little bit of a tangent, but it just reminded me, it's kind of a pet peeve that I have. When people make these arguments about what's in the Constitution, what's not in the Constitution, that's one of the things I run into a lot. There's all kinds of things you could argue are non-constitutional, but some people who are very, very anti-government to the extreme, like anarchists, they'll argue that everything's unconstitutional. Not literally everything, but all the things they don't like, those are unconstitutional. Well, some of these things, I'm open-minded. Maybe there is something here that is unconstitutional, but most of these things are non-constitutional, but they don't violate the Constitution, so STFU about it. All right, starting this over.
There is the clause in the Constitution that says a woman has the right to murder an innocent baby. A bunch of reprobates on the Supreme Court declared that a constitutional right to murder babies exists in our Constitution.
Being a bit hyperbolic there. Just in case anyone isn't clear, no one literally said that. No one has literally said that, by the way. Pretty sure. Just pointing that out.
There is no such right.
Not a single place.
There is no such federal law. The Congress has never passed an abortion law. It's never happened.
Right.
Judges on the Supreme Court who defied the living God decided that they would legalize the slaughter of babies in this country. Those judges, some of them, I guess all of them by now, are dead. And their carcasses will burn in hell forever. I personally believe that abortionists and those who fight for abortion, I believe that after you die and after the judgment of Almighty God on Judgment Day, I believe that abortionists and the supporters of abortion, I believe that their punishment in the lake of fire will be to be aborted continuously by demons.
Wow.
Continuous,
Jesus, buddy.
perpetual, eternal abortion.
I'm not sure how that would work. And would this... I'm confused about some of the details here. I don't mean to nitpick, but we are talking about what's going to happen to those of us who are pro-choice in the afterlife. So I think it's relevant. And I don't mean to belabor it or dwell on it, but, none of us are going to live forever. Is this going to be happening in the lake? He mentioned the lake of fire. So is it going to be happening in the lake of fire? Is that where this re-abortion happens to your eternal carcass or something? I'm a little bit confused. I don't, and maybe I've misunderstood something. I wouldn't think you would have an actual carcass in the afterlife. My impression, and again, none of us really know. We don't know until the moment that we cross over into the great beyond. My impression has always been that your carcass, referring, of course, to your dead body, kind of stays here. Like that's going to stay here and decompose like Easy G's dead Uncle Al, or if you're cremated, you get all burnt up. But so if that stays here, I'm not sure why it would be there and just continuing to burn. And it sounds like it's going to burn for eternity, but, I don't think it works that way. So I'm a little bit confused here. Now, the devil is in the details in this case, quite literally, I suppose, but this is all very confusing. I might have to back that up a little bit because, again, we are talking about, this, if this is true, if this is all true, this is very concerning. Maybe I've misunderstood something here and it's not as bad as I think. This whole lake of fire thing, though, sounds terrifying. I'm an excellent swimmer, but still, I don't know if I want to be in the lake of fire.
And those who fight for abortion,
yes,
I believe that after you die and after the judgment of Almighty God on Judgment Day, I believe that abortionists and the supporters of abortion, I believe that their punishment in the lake of fire will be to be aborted continuously by demons.
Wow.
Continuous, perpetual, eternal abortion.
And by the way, it seems to me that in order for that to happen, you would have to be born over and over again, or not quite born. This doesn't quite add up. I don't know if Rick Wiles is quite clear on all the details here. We'll listen to the rest of that in a moment, but let's see. In the Facebook live chat, let's see. Gia says, "Put me in a cage and let the birds peck off my flesh." Oh my goodness, Gia. I don't know if you mean for that to occur while you're here on Earth. I would hope not, or if that's kind of an afterlife thing. You think when you're in the afterlife, maybe that's something that would happen in the lake of fire. Fred says sorcery is enough to get you beheaded in Saudi Arabia. Yes, that is true. Fred says, well, if life begins at conception, child support should too, right? What do you mean, Fred? Oh my goodness, I don't think too many conservatives would agree with you there. Gia says, Fred, yep, women need to lock it up unless there is a pre-intercourse contract outlining responsibilities in event of unwanted pregnancy. Yes. Jenny is here.
Wait a minute, we want contracts now?
Well, Gia is just making a suggestion.
Really? You want a contract for dating?
Well, she may have been kidding because she was also talking about birds pecking her flesh, which I can't imagine she's serious about that.
Why can't you imagine that's serious?
Because that sounds horrifying. I'll tell you what.
What do you mean horrifying?
If birds came to peck at my flesh, I'd be like, get out of here, birds.
What you don't know, what happens when you're sleeping.
Well, I'm pretty sure I'd wake up, but
I don't know.
I'm worried about
deep sleeper.
I'm worried about birds pecking my flesh in the lake of hell. That's what I'm worried about.
So you're saying that you got that one-way ticket to hell now, huh?
Well, according to Rick Wiles, I do.
Are you guys like supposed to hang out somewhere for a while or something?
Purgatory?
Oh yeah, that.
I was raised Catholic. He didn't say anything about purgatory. Well, no, purgatory is if you're on your way to heaven. If you're pro-choice, you're going straight to hell, according to Rick Wiles.
Oh, okay.
Straight to the lake of fire.
Yes, okay.
Wow, yeah.
Tell that to the 11-year-old
That
pregnant
doc.
girl.
I'm just sitting here.
Think about a demon with scalpels, scissors, cutting your spinal cord.
Again and again.
Again and again.
Crushing your skull.
Crushing your skull, ripping your heart out, using a vacuum cleaner to suck your organs out. And then...
No, I'm still...
Oh my God, that's disgusting.
I'm still very confused about something, though. So this means that in the afterlife, you still have your physical body to have all these things happen to you? I mean, I think Rick Wiles is burying the lead here. He's talking about what happens to people who are pro-choice in the afterlife. But, I mean, this is quite a stunning revelation. No pun intended, I promise. In and of itself, apparently, according to Rick Wiles, in the afterlife, when you go to the lake of fire, you still have your spinal cord and your body and your skull and everything. I thought you couldn't take it with you.
So wait,
apparently you do. You take it all with you.
What happens if part of you gets lost along the way? Like, what if you have like an amputation and lose a foot? Does that mean in the afterlife you're footless? I thought you got it back.
Probably.
I thought that was like, boing, it's back.
Not in the lake of fire. You don't. In the lake of fire, it's the lake of fire. It's hell.
So then, what do you have a stump forever in all eternity? Like,
I
never
guess
get
so.
It back? That's Ryan.
You probably have like.
I mean, geez, I'm kind of looking forward to being able to be freely moving when it comes. I figure I get that back.
You probably have demons making fun of you, calling you Stumpy or something.
Look, I know all about that crazy exorcist guy that you've been following, and you're not bringing that into our house. No.
Bringing what? I don't understand.
Exorcist of any kind into our home.
What?
I saw you following those. I saw you posting those videos. I've seen you talking about it and following it, and I'm starting to wonder about you a little bit there.
Well,
going off the reservation or something. I don't know.
I am pro-choice. Maybe I need an exorcist to save me from the lake of fire.
Demons will come and get you.
That's what I'm worried about.
Now you need is the demon. Inside joke for those who don't know.
Yes.
And it all goes back together, and they do it again.
Maybe the demon even whispers, "You're not really a person. You're not really a person.
You're not a person. That's right. You have no rights." And this goes on for billions of years, hundreds of billions of years, billions of years, and it never stops. It never stops. You will be aborted continuously forever.
So either one of two things. He somehow knows this. Perhaps he was told this by the Lord, or this is just his own fantasy that he's come up with, which would mean he's a very deeply disturbed man.
I don't know who's disturbed around here.
Because that was very descriptive of Rick Wiles to come up with all that. Very descriptive.
Disgusting and inappropriate, and not even close to being accurate, but okay.
Very descriptive.
Gross. Just really gross.
Yeah.
Whose brain works like that to think of that in the first place?
Well,
I mean, you got to think that way first.
His heart's in the right place. He's just
Are you
to.
Sure?
He's trying to save the babies.
I think he's living in a Stephen King novel.
He believes life begins at conception. By the way, that's the new line I've noticed among pro-lifers.
I still want somebody to explain how they're going to implant babies.
Well, the new line now is that science has proven life begins at conception. I mean, they've always said life begins at conception, but now they're saying science has proven it. I've heard that over and over again, and I'm like, where? This is why they think Plan B causes an abortion. The abortion with the morning after pill, which it doesn't. But
the unintended consequences that are going to occur as a fallout from this are horrific and life-threatening. And so many people are so full of themselves and their beliefs that they don't want to hear the science, they don't want to know the truth, and they're not going to listen to the truth.
Right. I was very surprised this afternoon. I heard, I don't know who it was, because I I caught it mid-conversation, but there was a pro-life activist in Alabama who really surprised me, though. He said something. So one of my arguments has always been that if you want to, if you want to get rid of abortion, the correct thing to do is to keep doing what we've been doing, but do more of it. Because steadily, year after year, decade after decade, the rate of unwanted pregnancy has been dropping. The rate of teen pregnancy has been dropping. And the rate of abortion has been steadily dropping. And pro-lifers don't like to talk about any of that usually because it contradicts their narrative, because they're very much into this, no, you need abstinence-only education, all this stuff that doesn't work. But I actually heard a pro-lifer say, it was interesting because I'd never heard a pro-lifer say this before, but he tried to turn it around into making it into a pro-life argument. He said himself during this interview that I heard on NPR, he said, well, yeah, because he was asked the question, aren't you worried about going back to a time of, the back alley abortions and all this, or when a woman would perforate her uterus with a coat hanger? Forgive me for being graphic, but that's what used to go on. And his response was, no, because demand for abortion is going away anyway. And then he cited the same statistics I just did, and it was kind of jarring a little bit to hear a pro-lifer say those very things that they don't usually, because I've said that to pro-life, like on a certain show that I used to be the co-host on. I would get into these conversations on that show with pro-lifers all the time, and I would say things like, well, you do realize that as we increase education and as we increase access to contraception, the rate of unwanted pregnancy has been dropping. The rate of teen pregnancy has been dropping. The rate of abortion has been dropped since Roe v. Wade. The rate of abortion has been on a steady decline over the decades. And these people would look me right in the face and say, oh, I don't believe any of those numbers. Those can't possibly be right. It's like, oh my God, those are the government's own numbers. So to actually hear a pro-lifer say that out loud, everything I just said was I was like, whoa, really? Did he really just say that? But of course, apparently this is the new way. This is the new tactic now. They can't run from those facts anymore. So now they're just going to spin them into, well, the demand for abortion is dropping, so we might as well just go ahead and outlaw it now. Which is obviously going to backfire.
In so many ways, and in some very horrific ways. And what people don't think about are those horrific cases. Now, I don't want you to get me wrong. Me personally, I don't believe in abortion as a form of birth control.
Of course not.
But
no, nobody does.
As the conversations are starting to happen, the other side of the coin is these are the same people that are trying to feed you the line about not, we shouldn't allow young ladies to have menstruation pads or tampons available to them within the school. That's the same people that have the pro-life narrative, the same people that are trying to keep that out of the schools. And these are people that are so backwards. They don't want to have honest conversations with kids. And the bottom line is the more honest conversations, I agree with you, that we have with kids, the more that we're open about how their bodies work, how they scientifically function. How does your body function? I remember when I was a young lady, a very young age. In my case, I was not educated appropriately. And I suffered through a lot to understand being a young lady and dealing with the simple fact of menstruation. And I was not taught appropriately, but now we are. That reduces the rate of unwanted pregnancies. The access to having birth control, to understanding how birth control works. These kids are smart. They know that condoms do not protect them against sexually transmitted diseases entirely. They're smart. They get this. They know that the timing method doesn't work. They know that if they don't...
The rhythm method.
Yeah, the rhythm method, whatever
that's a big Catholic thing.
These kids are smarter.
That's why you see these very large Catholic families.
Well, and in my own faith, having a large family is usually predominant in people who are very Orthodox. And there's families like mine and my dad's that didn't have a lot of kids, and that doesn't matter. What matters is how we educate our young, and the more we educate them, the better. My generation wasn't taught as well. The generations that are existing now are being taught better, and they're being taught from a no-nonsense perspective. They're not talking down to them like little kids, They're like, hee, hee, hee. There's less of that, and there's more quality conversation, I think, going on. I know that when my kid went through health education, he came home, and I'll never forget it, and he'll shoot me for ever saying this, but his health teacher did such an excellent job of educating them. He came home and had an honest discussion about sexually transmitted diseases and expressed his desire to wait to go that far, to not want to go that far, because he wasn't ready to deal with those risks. And that came from a real conversation. We don't have real conversations. We have more pregnancy.
I've told this little anecdote many times on the show, but I'll repeat it because it's certainly relevant now. One of the times that Rick Perry ran for president, I forget if it was the first time or the second time, because I think he's run twice. I know he's run at least. I think he's only run twice, is what I mean. He did this question and answer thing. I think it was at some university in Texas, and he was asked about, at the time, he was still governor at the time, and he was asked about their abstinence only policy in terms of education. No sex ed in Texas schools, abstinence only. That was the policy. And he was asked about this, and he said, well, that's what works. It clearly works. And then the interviewer said to him, well, you do realize that Texas has the strictest abstinence only policy in the country and the highest rate of teen pregnancy in the country. So apparently it doesn't work. And his answer was just something like, well, I know abstinence works. And he really didn't have an answer. He just kind of,
You know how abstinence works? By educating them to want to choose that for themselves.
Right. Yeah.
That's what works.
Yeah.
Educating them and giving them materials, not closing the door and saying, I'm not going to, no, don't look in there. It's scary.
And that reminds me, too, of another positive trend. The rate at which the median age at which teenagers are first engaging in sexual behavior has gone up.
Yes. Yeah.
Kids are waiting more and more now to have sex.
They get the consequences better than our generation did.
Another positive trend, which is a result of educating these kids.
But beside that fact, we also have to consider the medical ramifications. One of the worst stories I ever heard about a state that had too tight of an abortion law involved a woman who was pregnant with a child she very much wanted. In fact, it was her. It would have been her third, and unfortunately, somewhere around the period of about 6 months or so, they lost the child. For whatever reason, the child passed away in utero, and the doctor said, nature will take its course, and they assured her that. And so she was sent home to go through the natural process of miscarriage and then to come to the hospital when that was going to happen. And the thing about it is that 2 weeks went by and she didn't miscarry. 2 weeks of literally walking around feeling like she was a coffin for her infant.
Yeah.
She actually used that term.
That's
and her
brutal.
husband had to bring her to another state in order for them to go in and do what needed to be done to keep the mother from getting sick from sepsis or something of infection, but also to save her sanity.
Yeah.
She was absolutely losing her mind.
Yeah.
I will finish the story by saying that she did go on to have another child later in life, and had 3 beautiful children that were very healthy and very beautiful. But no one should be forced by law to go through that kind of suffering and pain.
Yeah.
Because the law was crafted so narrowly, it negated any of those possibilities. And when it happens once, it can happen again.
Mm-hmm.
And it does happen. People lose their children every day to miscarriage, and not everybody can go through that process naturally. People have things wrong with their bodies that get in the way.
Yeah.
Do we really want to make people suffer? I don't think that's the intent.
Right.
But that's the unintended consequences of narrowly tapered laws that don't consider any of the unintended consequences.
Right.
And in medicine, there are a lot.
Yeah. Well, I think we might, on that note, we might move on to something, because we'll do something fun.
Oh, good.
I don't like to spend too much time on the abortion stuff, because it's like after a while
it's sunny out.
So frustrating.
Clouds are breaking. I want to enjoy the day.
I want to play some of this. So Howard Stern, of course, is one of my radio heroes, And ABC News posted on YouTube this interview, and I want to play some of it because he says some things in here about Trump. You know, Trump was a frequent, well, not frequent, but Howard had him on a number of times on the Howard Stern show. And Howard has, there's one very specific observation here that he makes about Trump that I want to, well, let's just say he has a theory very similar to my theory. You know, Howard's promoting he's got a new book called Howard Stern Comes Again, which I haven't read yet. It's just out. I think it's just out now. But I want to play some of this. So this is Howard being interviewed by George Stephanopoulos.
Hearing guys like you, respected broadcast journalists, say Howard Stern comes again, it gives me, oh my God, I'm coming again.
Howard Stern calls himself the king of all media. His specialty, no-holds-barred celebrity interviews. From Robert Downey Jr.
Would you be upset if they ever replaced you as Tony Stark and Iron Man, or do you have an exit strategy in any of this?
I believe I do. To Charlize Theron.
Are you easy to live with?
I'm sure I'm not. Even President Donald Trump.
During the Ivana divorce case, I saw you as a victim.
I like it.
You know why I saw you as a victim?
Why should I say anything? This is beautiful.
Should I tell you?
Now out with a new book reflecting on some of his biggest gets.
Donald Trump would come on my show, and this is why he was great. There was no filter. I go, Donald, Angelina Jolie, she's one of the most beautiful actresses in the world. She's a 6. You know, now who says that? You know, most people, if they're having that thought, keep that pretty guarded. Not Donald. He was right into it.
You know who's one of the great beauties of the world, according to everybody, and I helped create her? Who? Ivanka.
Ivanka Trump, most beautiful girl in the world. You know, I would marry her. These types of things, most people, certainly politicians, don't say.
That would.
Well, let me. I can find the actual clip he's referring to this comment.
If Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her.
Or that was from Howard.
Would have been embarrassing.
Some of the dozens of interviews Stern did with Trump resurfaced during the 2016 election, and Stern says he didn't foresee the impact.
And I was quite surprised when they dragged out every single Donald Trump interview I had done. And in some ways, I felt it was unfair to Trump because, like, for example, they were fond of quoting that Donald Trump had said something to the effect that STDs were his personal Vietnam. But really, it was in a very joking scenario. He was not comparing his life to a Vietnam vet. It was ha, 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 and this and that. But when journalists took it and made it serious, I thought it was a little bit unfair.
Do you feel that?
The reason that's so interesting to me, and there's another piece of this that's interesting, but as you've all probably noticed, I'm not a tremendous fan of the president. However, yeah, well, believe it or not, I'm not much of a Trump guy. I know say. I know this
What's
is.
the matter with you, huh?
I know this is stunning to hear.
Oi.
But
people are gonna think you're nuts.
I know, right?
Oh, they're gonna send the white coats.
But fair is fair, and I have defended certain things where I thought the media has gone too far, and one of the things that has always bothered me. And, you know, and this is what Howard's talking about here is when the media would take things that Trump said on the Howard Stern show and use those against him. And I always thought that was unfair because, you know, you should going on a show like Stern, you know, and it's a humorous show. And, of course, you're going to kind of get into the humor and some of the humor's, you know, a little body or whatever. You know, that shouldn't be held against you. Things that you say when you're clearly kidding, you know, kidding around.
So, everything should be held against you, including everything that you've ever thought about, including what you're thinking right now. I caught you. You're in trouble.
Well, that's what some people believe. But I've always cringed when I've seen the media bring up things that Trump said on the Howard Stern show and tried to use those against him. And to me, you know, I always, whenever I see somebody going after somebody unfairly, or going after a particular idea, you know, or whatever, and it's like, well, hold on. Aren't there enough other things, like with Trump? To me, there's enough valid things that Trump has said and done to criticize, so you diminish your whole sort of thing if you start going after him for things that really shouldn't count. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm going to call you out because I'm pretty sure I remember that you saying you didn't agree when the tape came out of, obviously he wasn't president at the time, but then Donald Trump saying, grab her by the
Right. Well,
the vajayjay there.
Well,
you had that was actually filmed and taken during, what was it, a TMZ interview? That was an interview with Donald Trump. So
Access Hollywood.
So exactly. So if you're going to say, hey, past interviews, past things you've said shouldn't be held against you because you were just joking around or whatever on Howard Stern. Well, then how come you can't? Why didn't you apply that when that came out? Why did you hit the president when that came out?
Well, here's what I've said about that, because it's a little more nuanced than that. So to me, I thought the comment was kind of gross, but
so it's your perception.
But what I do think is a little unfair is when the media takes that, because they still do it even now. It still comes up. They'll refer to Trump as having bragged about sexually assaulting women. I hear that all the time, even now.
Some people consider grabbing a woman's vajayjay without her permission assault.
Right. Well, it is. It is assault, literally. But that he wasn't bragging about doing that. He was making a very bad joke about doing that.
He was bragging about being worth so much money he could do whatever he wanted and a woman would go with him.
But I think
it was disgusting and it was horrible behavior and it's something that is gross. But if you're going to apply the logic that whatever he said on Howard Stern doesn't count, well, then whatever he said on Access Hollywood doesn't count either. You can't have it both ways.
Well, I'm not trying to have it both ways.
You are.
What I'm saying, no, because I thought the comment was gross.
It doesn't matter that the comment's gross. That's perception.
But
that has nothing to do with what if I think that something he said on Howard Stern is gross?
Yeah, but I'm also saying I don't particularly agree with the way the media has used that against him. So I'm not trying to have it both ways.
But you hit him on it when it came out.
Yeah, because I was like, that's not funny, dude.
But it's not funny, and it is gross, and it is inappropriate, but it's the same scenario.
Yeah.
You're dealing with the reporter on an Access Hollywood. That's the same kind of cuckoo media stuff.
But I didn't agree with the way. But I didn't agree with the way it was.
You're picking.
No.
You're picking what you're gonna like and not like.
No, I'm consistent because I didn't agree with the way it was used against him.
Who thinks Matt's consistent?
I didn't agree with the way it was used against him the same way I don't agree with the way the Howard Stern stuff is used against him.
I don't think you're consistent. I think you're drawing hairs where you want them. I don't think that you're
drawing hairs.
Yeah, whatever.
I've never heard that expression.
Really, you're just
is that
really?
Is that a real expression?
Is that where we're gonna go?
Is that a real expression?
Is that where we're gonna go?
Drawing hairs?
Really?
I don't know. Let's hear more of this.
In some way,
somebody out there knows what I just said to you.
Right. There's something else Howard says here though that I think is really interesting and a very interesting observation about Trump.
Help make him president?
Absolutely. Because Donald would come on my show. I mean, look.
Does it make you feel bad or good?
Well, look, I did not vote for Donald Trump. The way I helped Donald was I let him come on and be a personality. Whether you liked him or not, people related to him as a human being, whether you love him or hate him. He's a master at talking like a dude.
Stern didn't take candidate Trump seriously at first.
I don't think he thought he was going to win, and I don't think he expected to win.
What?
Howard Stern just said it.
What?
Trump is a master at talking like a dude, and what do dudes like to brag about? What they consider their conquest. The women. I mean, look at your idol, Gene Simmons. Perfect example.
Mm-hmm.
He's known for his conquest. How many women he slept with? Okay?
Sort of.
Okay.
Well, sort of. And
come on.
I'll explain what I mean by that.
Come on. Right, same thing here. Trump has always been somebody that has portrayed himself as somebody who can pretty much get whatever woman he wants, even though there's many women out there who would say otherwise. That's how he came off. That's the dude appearance that he had on Access Hollywood that he had on Howard Stern.
I don't think that's quite
and
what
I didn't
Howard...
vote for Trump either, but I'm going to sit here and say no. You don't get to split hairs. You either got to pick one or the other.
I don't think that's what Howard meant
and
in
split
this
hairs
context.
Is a thing.
No, you said drying hairs before. No, splitting hairs, yes. You said drying hairs, and I was like, dry hairs.
Oh, so you're just going to nitpick my little comments? Really?
No,
that's the extent of your data.
When Howard says that right here, I think what he meant was Trump talks like a regular guy, not like a highfalutin politician.
Because that's the regular guys talk.
I think that's what Howard meant.
There's a reason I don't like regular guys, I guess.
Yeah, but I think that's what Howard meant. I'll back it up. But the really important thing that Howard says
surprisingly, a lot of women find it offensive to hear men speak that way, and there's nothing sexy about it.
Well, I don't speak that way, and I don't. Find,
I know you don't.
And I don't find it.
Well, you're not like them.
I don't find it surprising that a lot of women don't like that.
Oh, there's a lot of guys out there that think that they like to talk that way.
Yeah, but a lot of guys are stupid.
That's right.
Yeah.
And let's add a few people to that list.
Yeah. But I want to back this up a little bit, because this is what I really wanted to focus on.
Does it make you feel bad or good?
Well, look, I did not vote for Donald Trump. The way I helped Donald was I let him come on and be a personality. Whether you liked him or not, people related to him as a human being, whether you love him or hate him. He's a master at talking like a dude.
Stern didn't take candidate Trump seriously at first.
I don't think he thought he was going to win, and I don't think he expected to win.
Right.
I think it was a publicity stunt.
You've
and
said
what I mean
that.
by that is, when he put out his first book, Art of the Deal, they said, why don't you announce you're running for president? And it'll help sell books. It'll get you on every show. And if you go back and look in time, that's exactly what they did. He never announced he was running. He was going to run. What happened, I think, with this time was the Apprentice ratings were going down.
Mm-hmm.
NBC was balking at giving him a big contract. And lo and behold, I'm running for president.
But once Trump
and that's what I've always said. It was a publicity stunt that got wildly out of control. He never expected to win. He probably never even expected to be the nominee.
Well, bottom line is he is.
Right.
Like it or not.
Yeah.
He's the president of the United States. And for me and mine, there's some semblance of respect for the office we have to have. We don't have to agree with everything that's coming out of there.
Right.
But I think it's nitpicking to go back and go through Access Hollywood tapes or Howard Stern tapes and pull out stuff that was said back then. I mean, I'm sure that we could find a few choice words said by Ronald Reagan that we wouldn't necessarily agree with from his days in Hollywood if we really looked. Of course, there wouldn't be as much evidence because he didn't get filmed as much. Nowadays, you can get filmed everywhere, so you really can't get away with anything.
Yeah. No,
and that's part of it, too. You can't get away with anything nowadays. Everything is recorded. Everything is reproducible. So your life, there are people alive on this planet right now whose entire lives since day one of being born have been on Facebook or some other social media.
Yeah. There's a little more here.
Became president, their personal and professional relationship changed.
The turning point in my relationship with Donald was he did ask me to speak at the convention, and I had to say no.
Were you tempted at all?
Well, since I was a Hillary supporter, for a minute I thought, well, I'll go up and endorse Hillary, which would have been a great moment.
You wish you would have done that now?
No, I wouldn't do that to Donald. You know, it's a weird relationship I have with Donald. Was at my wedding. He was always very nice to me.
But you don't want him to be president, but you can't help like him?
I have a real problem. As you can tell, I have a real problem with what's going on, so I'm very conflicted now. You know, the guy I knew I didn't know this was him. I don't believe his stance on abortion, for example. The Donald I know, I think he probably needed to get a few people abortions. I don't know what he's doing.
Whoa.
It is really unthinkable to me about what's going on in the country right now.
Stern describes how during the 2016 campaign, he was running his own campaign to get Hillary Clinton as a guest.
She doesn't know about I'm in therapy and doesn't know what I really wanted to do. I didn't want to ask her about her sex life. I didn't want to ask her about Bill Clinton and his affairs or any of that. The woman has devoted her life to public service. Why? What is it about public service? What is it that drives her? What was her climb? I thought that perhaps if she came on my show, we could have stripped away some of the pomp and circumstance or the tightness that comes with running for president. And like Donald, she could have been seen in a different light.
Humanize
And you
her.
believe if she had done that, she'd be president?
That's an arrogant statement. It came down to a couple of states, 70,000 votes. On SiriusXM, we have 33 million subscribers. If Hillary could have come in and maybe persuaded 70,000 people out of those millions of people that listen and come off in such a way maybe we'd be looking at a different scenario.
Stern's platform is...
Anyway, so and then it goes on. It's a great interview, but that whole section of it I thought was really interesting.
Well, it's true. I mean, think about when Bill Clinton was running for office. What do we remember from when we were kids? Him going on MTV and playing the saxophone
on Arsenio.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, wrong show, right instrument.
Right.
But that humanized Bill Clinton to young people.
Mm-hmm.
To a lot of people, because
yeah.
you got to see him as a human playing an instrument, jamming with a band, being more natural and more let loose than you normally see.
I know what's on the TV.
Oh, sorry.
You normally see politicians.
Virtual John Hopwood had to interject there.
He's going to get some ice water.
Mention of television.
Ugh.
Yeah. No, it is interesting to think about, though, what if Hillary had gone on Howard? You know?
I don't know that would have made any difference for her, because she's such a war hawk. That was such a turnoff to a lot of young people that they shied away from her for that reason.
Yeah,
a lot of people did,
but
and a lot of people were mad about Bernie.
But the whole humanizing her thing, I think, would have been.
Couldn't they all use that, though?
It's just an interesting thing to think about.
But isn't that what Trump does? He endears himself to people because he doesn't talk like a politician. Because he talks, and some of us may say, oh, that was idiotic of what he said, or I can't believe the president wrote that. But there are so many people out there that actually find that very refreshing to hear language like they might hear or just around the neighborhood, from a politician, from somebody that they're holding as almost over them in a way.
Yeah, I would find it refreshing if I didn't think he said awful things and had awful policies. Just a regular.
A lot of things going on there.
A regular guy? No, I'd be into that too.
Little emperor has no clothes thing going on.
Yeah. So I think it is the top of the hour, so we'll take a break. But very excited to hear. I'm going to play something from this. We have a new sponsor. But you're listening to Matt Connarton Unleashed, and we're live on WMNH 95.3 FM, and we will be right back. Whoops.
Hello, and welcome to McDonald's. You've probably heard we're revamping our image.
But you may not know about all the wonderful new changes in store for our customers.
You've seen our hot new hipster hamburglar.
But have you seen the new Grimace? He used to be such a sourpuss.
But now, he's a magnet.
Uh-huh. We also have a new burger for all you tree huggers out there who are too snobby to eat fresh patties from enormous vats of ground-up cows. The McCarrot Burger. Healthy and delicious.
But don't worry, we've still got all the classics, like the Big Mac.
And we're not going to change the Big Mac or the special sauce inside it. Our founder's grandson's great-nephew Randy's been making it, whatever it is, for 45 years.
I make it at home in the back room, late at night.
Now let's talk dessert.
The apple filling in our baked apple pie was too hot for some people, so we replaced it with something a lot cooler. Gumballs. Yeah, all right.
And of course, there have been a lot of questions about just what kind of fish is in the fillet of fish. It's fish, right?
Yeah, of course.
It's a
fish! But we're not just updating the menu, we're upgrading the entire experience. Karen, do you remember those complaints from moms about the cleanliness of the ball pit at the play place?
I sure do, Jeff, but not to worry. Those ball pits will be scrubbed clean by our new global head of Play Place Cleanliness, Randy.
They told me I could legally wash the children's
Whoa! Don't worry about how that sounds. Randy will only be allowed to clean when our locations are closed.
Dang it.
Wait a minute. We almost forgot about Ronald.
Studies show that Ronald McDonald actually scares the shit out of children, so he's now known as health expert Ronald McDoctor.
Hi. Nothing is healthier than eating at McDonald's. Try our gumball pies. They're very slimming.
Thanks, Doc. Hey, Jeff, isn't it about time for our jingle?
You mean, I'm loving it?
No, silly, the new one.
Oh, yeah. Hit it, Maestro.
Mickey D's, you have no other choice at the airport.
So come on down to the new McDonald's, which is now called Anywhere But McDonald's.
As in, where do you want to eat tonight, Jeff?
Anywhere but McDonald's.
Oh, yeah, one more thing. You, Morgan Spurlock.
Anywhere anywhere but McDonald's. You still have no other choice at the airport.
And there ain't no more Happy Meals neither. Unless y'all
Lord, we thank you for this day, and please protect us from anything that might lead or affect us astray. Kids, make sure you read your Bibles, it's the best word. You can't be watching nothing with the S word, okay? You know what breaks my heart? Our culture is, of course, and Clinton was the start, and 8 years more dead. We need to get back to the tenets of small government. That's why I came to cheer and watch. A statist who likes to grab crotch. So give me more disclosure of entitlement proposals. I used to say we can't afford, tax my trade and close the border, give crude language the exposure that up till now I abhorred. While I'm not a total poser, you could say I'm getting closer. You look at all you people out here nodding, while soon there's gonna be a lot of bombings. We grieve Trump, that guy just gives the pot a stirring motion. I haven't seen such terrible emotion since New Year's Eve. You know it breaks my heart, the wars are never ending. George Bush was the start, and Donald Trump, Mike Pence. We need to stop the droning, it's just common sense. Those are things I'll protest and scream, unless you know it hurts my team. So hand me a pink poster, because now I'm an opposer of the bombings and the wars that for 8 years I glossed over. My memory is as selective as Meryl Streep's, I suppose. Past that stuff we brought from Boulder, you could say I'm getting closer. You could say we're getting closer. You could say we're getting closer.
Jesus Christ didn't have blue eyes or blonde hair. He looked just like all those people that you wanna kill. Yeah, you could spin your hell into a heaven you can sail. Make it look like California with a Bible belt. Jesus didn't look like the boy next door, unless you live in Palestine. I wonder what you mean by the golden rule. Yeah, I think it is a scary play on word. I wonder what they taught you back in Sunday school. I bet you thinking him has a nice clean long hair Republican. Nah, he'd be all locked up in Guantanamo Bay if it were alive today. Jesus loves the little children. I say I know that's true. I say he loved all the Muslims and the Jews, all the Arabs and the porn stars too. You say Jesus died to save us all from a fiery hell. Yeah, I say Jesus died to save us from ourselves. And the races and the boys in this world. Jesus was alive today, and he had the chance to meet him face to face. I am goddamn sure that you and your friends would find some way to kill him all over again. Oh, I think you'd kill him all over again. Again and again and again and again. Just like you always do. Yeah, you do just what you always do. Oh.
We interrupt this program for this special report from the Pat Robertson Gay Abortion Tornado Weather Radar Center.
Thanks. Now you can see by the Weather Judgment Center 9 Gay Abortion Color Radar that there is an area of extreme sin and deprivation that is the most threatened, along a line and 10 miles either side of a line from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. Now, righteous people in these areas should expect the fornicators and sodomites in the path of God's wrath to be swept up by tornadoes and into the lake of fire within the next 15 minutes. You can see these fornicators and sodomites here on Weather Judgment Center 9's patented Center Doppler Suite. Also, wives in these areas who aren't servants to their husbands and who are just plain not that good looking will be plucked up out of their storm shelters to be boiled in absolute punishment, wherein their giblets will be rendered, their naughty parts sautéed in the clarified butter of their wicked perfidy. In addition, we're keeping a close watch on this tropical storm that will probably attack homosexual structures such as dog grooming parlors and antique stores within the next 48 hours. Be sure to stay tuned to Weather Judgment Center 9 as we continue to track the path of God's wrath. In Jesus' name I pray.
Jesus, buddy.
Welcome back. We are well into hour number 2 of Matt Connarton Unleashed live on WMNH 95.3 FM, emanating from downtown Manchester, New Hampshire, also on Comcast 97 in Manchester, streaming at WMNHradio.org, and on Facebook on the Matt Connarton Unleashed Facebook page. Wonderful to have you all with me. 603-250-6007 is the number to call. 603-250-6007. And while I have some very exciting industry news to share, of course, it's kind of been that type of day, I guess, in a way. Earlier I shared some Howard Stern stuff. Of course, Howard Stern, one of my big broadcasting heroes. But this is from Mediaite. A conservative radio station in Blue State, Connecticut, rebrands as Trump Radio. Can you believe it? Trump Radio. Wow, very exciting. A conservative radio station in Deep Blue, Connecticut says it is turning further to the right and rebranding as Trump Radio. The Hartford Courant reports radio station WDRC is branding itself as Trump Radio and Trump 103.3. That's just funny to me as a radio guy. It's just funny to, I just imagine the sweepers and, Trump 103.3. You know what I mean? I just I gotta find this online when they do it. I gotta stream it to hear some of this. With a lineup featuring commentary from conservative media personalities Ben Shapiro and Bill O'Reilly. Whoa! Wait a second now. They can't put Ben Shapiro on there. Ben Shapiro is kinda, sorta a never Trumper. They're gonna put a sort of tepidly so, not quite, but almost never Trumper on Trump 103.3. I mean, that's very dangerous. What a bold programming decision that is, my friends. Advertisements for the station on Connecticut roadways feature a likeness of President Donald Trump. The Hartford Courant, at Hartford Courant, tweeted out, "Few people work harder than Donald Trump when it comes to self-promotion, but now one Connecticut radio station is doing it for him." And there's a picture here of Trump 103.3 FM. Oh, God, you have to see, you have to see this. You know what? I will drop a link to it into the Facebook live chat for those of you who are listening and watching on Facebook. And if you're not, you can always take a peek at it later on. But there you go. The link is in there. You got to see the picture. Let's see. We have a quote here from radio host Lee Elsey. Said, quote, "My station owner is a crazy person, but in a good way. He likes to make a big splash, and he likes to ramp up the listeners. It seems like the listeners have embraced it, even if it is for the short term," unquote. For the short term, what do they think he's going to lose in 2020? Come on now. How can you? Not only do I predict that Trump will win re-election, I believe that Trump will remarkably, and I don't know when the last time this happened was, probably never. I think that Trump will even carry Connecticut. Why? Because of Trump 103.3. Elsie noted that there are 3 Florida radio stations that are playing selections from Trump's speeches every hour until the 2020 election. That's true. I did read that the other day. There's these stations in Florida that are actually playing Trump speeches every hour of the day. It's just remarkable. Legal experts that spoke with the Hartford Courant cautioned the station may be on shaky ground by using the president's name and likeness. Well, I'm sure he doesn't. I'm sure the president doesn't object at all. Quote, "I would probably have said, 'Oh boy, we're going to really need to think about this,' unquote," said trademarks expert Jonathan Faber. The station has been running promos calling for the firing of Democratic Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont to galvanize conservatives in the state. When asked about the rebrand, a spokeswoman for the governor said, quote, "This is nothing more than a PR ploy to try to attract listeners who are already predisposed to believe that anything Government Lamont does is wrong and anything President Trump does is right," unquote. What an exciting time in the radio industry, I'll tell you. You can see why I enjoy these things so much. We're going to kind of really shift gears here. I have a story from Reason that I want to share with you. We won't spend a lot of time on this, but if you're a regular listener, you're certainly aware by now that I am vehemently anti-drug war. And you know, we talked about it on the show yesterday. You know, yesterday on the show, we had a great guest joining us by phone, Lauren DeLuca, and she's from the Chronic Pain Advisory. Forgive me. The name of the organization escapes me. Gia, if you're still listening, you probably know. It's got a long name, and you know, I can't remember these things. I'm not smart enough. I'm a radio host. What do you want from me? But you know, we had a great conversation with her, and we were talking about how, you know, we were talking about the war on drugs, and we were talking about, you know, one of the aspects of it, of course, the government and the CDC getting involved in trying to limit opioids, opiates, etc. And you know, it was an in-depth conversation. Laura was on with us for the entire 2 hours, we talked about how the government has screwed this up to the point where there are a lot of people who are suffering from chronic pain who have been taken off of their pain meds through no fault of their own by a sociopathic government that just makes everything worse. Oh, thank you, Gia. She put the link into the Facebook live chat. It's CIAAG.net. CIAAG.net. That's Lauren DeLuca's great organization that she founded and is currently doing good work, to try to change things. So, but, the war on drugs has a lot of victims and whatnot. And, we are little by little, there's some positive steps happening. More and more states are going legal. Not quite there yet here in New Hampshire. Sununu has said he will veto any legalization of cannabis, but at least we got decrim. But I have an interesting story here about something that's going on in San Antonio. But let's grab this call. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
Oh, hello.
Well, hello, Eric.
Yeah, I got a great idea for the Snow Arena. You heard that the Monarchs have folded up ship.
Yes, and just to be
Yesterday,
clear,
yeah.
just to be clear, you said ship, S-H-I-P. I just don't want to get in any trouble because sometimes on the phone it's hard to hear everything clearly enunciated.
Right, but they got 1,000 Democrats running for office. Well, they could put them all around in a big table where they used to have the ice.
Uh-huh.
And they could have a huge debate, and they could have in charge free admission, and then open up the stands, sell some of those expensive foods that we sell at the arena, and then they could have some other presidential candidates come in and hold some rallies. They've done that in the past. Donald Trump came there a couple of years ago, and he was there the night before the election. President Obama came a while back, and he had the Oprah Winfrey, and the place was sold out. And I think. Then Hillary Clinton came to town, and she might have had Oprah Winfrey with her too.
Yes,
they got to think outside the box. It's election season.
Well, Eric, have you been in touch with anyone at the SNU Arena to discuss these ideas?
Well, they probably just laugh at me, so I just tell you.
Oh, well, you're an ideas guy, though, Eric. Here's what you do, Eric. You show up there. You just go. You don't even call them. You just show up with a briefcase and a clipboard. And dress nice, wear a tie, whatever. And then
I had a lot of great ideas to keep the Monarchs in town. I have more promotions like the Fisher Cats do.
They'll have to take you seriously.
I talked to that lady in charge of the promotion here, Stephanie Fortier. I'll give her a shout out. And I told her like 6 months ago, I said, "You guys do such a great job in all the promotions you do, and you have such a good attendance, once the good weather's here, and the school that's out, they have a lot of
Jesus, buddy.
A lot of things going on. Fireworks, people love that stuff, and the meet the players, and the all kind of fun events. Star Wars themes, and people love promotions.
Wow.
When they had promotions at the the Monarchs games, they had the military appreciation night. Who doesn't love that? And Max, the mascot's birthday, and and they would have 2,000-3,000 people in there.
Oh yeah.
But unfortunately, I think over the years they gave away too many free tickets.
Too many free tickets.
You don't make money that way.
That's right. They call that papering the room.
Yeah, well, let's say it. Come and say it in person. Yeah, well, let's say it. Come and say it in person.
Ah, boy. Ooh, I think virtual John Hopwood is picking a fight with you there, EZG.
Yeah.
So
I think it's a great idea. Have a couple of debates there, have some rallies.
I think that
this is political season. Feel the Burn guys, have him come down, do a big rally there, and
you are the
have
man
people
to
come in
save
for free,
it.
but then open up the stands and charge them, high prices for the food. That's where you make your money.
Eric, have you ever considered a career in event promotion?
Yeah, well, I have a lot of great ideas. I think I don't know if they'll probably just laugh at me saying, "Oh, this guy's a loony bin."
Yeah.
No, you got to go in there with confidence, EZG.
I know my boss likes to tell everybody that comes into Creamland now that hey, this guy's on the radio. His name's EZG.
Is that Ryan Gorman?
No, it's EZG.
Calls, he's funny now. I said at first when I told her that I was on the radio, she thought that was kind of funny. But now she tells everybody that I'm on the radio. It's kind of funny.
Right.
Sometimes people give her a funny look. It's like, oh, okay.
You know what you should do, EZG, because you have all these ideas and marketing and promotion. You should try to apply them at Creamland.
Yeah, that was funny the other day. When I don't know if my boss was serious, but he said we should do a remote in for the morning show over at Creamland. I said, well,
make it happen.
I don't know how serious you are about it, but I said I have to talk to the people over at the studio. But I think that would make a great show, don't you?
Who
Peter White, the morning show at the Creamland.
Who gives a damn?
Virtual John Hopwood doesn't think so, but I think it's a stunning idea.
Yeah, because when I first brought up the idea, my boss said, no, I don't want to do anything on the radio. But boy, that's all he talks about now. Is our other half there, Dave there. He listens to the morning show every day now. He's hooked.
Who listens every day?
Is her boyfriend, Dave.
Oh.
I don't know who that is, and I don't care.
Yeah, he's hooked every morning. If she wants me to promote an event tomorrow, I said, well, I'll do my best. He goes, well, you better do it, or I'm going to call up and complain.
Oh, my goodness.
I hate being bored.
Well, very exciting. I think you should be I think you should angle for a promotion. I think you should be the marketing director at Creamland with all these ideas.
I'll bring it up with Peter White in the morning, and we'll see what he says.
Make sure, EZG, and I'm quite serious about this, make sure when you bring it up to him, you bring it up to him with confidence. You need to project confidence that you know what you're doing.
I'm going to bring it up at 6:30, though. I'm going to show up a little later today, because tomorrow, because I think showing up at 6:30 is too early.
Right.
So I think I'm going to casually come in a little after 7.
Yeah.
I'm going to get in there a little too early.
Right, but
so, Peter's busy, he's getting the show ready, and blah, 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 blah.
Yes.
I'll just come in and everything's all set up. And that way I'll just glide my way in.
But you want to make
Say,
sure.
hey, let's have a show at Cleveland.
Right. Oh, so you're going to.
I know because Joe Ward has to be involved and some of the equipment over.
You're going to
be a great radio.
You're going to put him on the spot? You're going to ask him right there on the air?
Oh, you know, that's my style. All right, I got to go. Time for my dinner. Have a great rest of your show.
All right. Thanks, Eric. Bye-bye. All right, EZG.
When are the food stamps? You know, you can go down and pick up your cheese now.
Be nice, Virtual John Hopwood. That's EZG. He's got all these great marketing ideas. Gia says in the Facebook live chat, Chronic Illness and Advocacy Awareness Group. That's the name of Lauren DeLuca's organization. Thank you, Gia. So as we slowly, gradually chip away at the war on drugs, or as I like to call it, the government's war against the American people, through more and more states legalizing and so forth. Trump has even said that he is open. Yeah, I don't know how enthusiastic he is about the idea, but he is open to doing something federally. At the very least, maybe moving cannabis off of Schedule 1. You know, and we have a number of candidates for the Democrats who are talking about at least going full legal on cannabis and so forth. So there is progress there. Israel, by the way, just, I believe, went full legal on cannabis. So, you know, there's a lot of folks here who pay a lot of attention to what goes on in Israel. So, you know, maybe that'll help convince some of these folks. But there's also there's been some individual prosecutors in the country who have said, you know what, we're not going to process some of these low-level drug crimes anymore. And another example of that has popped up. This is from Reason.com, and this went up this afternoon. San Antonio prosecutor will stop prosecuting trace drug amounts and petty pot possession. The Bexar County District Attorney plans to stop prosecuting people for trace drug amounts and less than 1 ounce of cannabis in order to focus resources on violent crime. And that is very good news, I think, for the people of San Antonio. Imagine that, law enforcement being free to investigate and arrest people for actual violent crime instead of worrying about somebody who, you know, gets caught with a little bit of cannabis on them and, we gotta take in. A Texas district attorney, again, this is from Reason, a Texas district attorney will no longer prosecute trace amounts of hard drugs or amounts of cannabis under 1 ounce in what will be one of the more aggressive attempts by a prosecutor in the Lone Star State to divert resources away from petty drug crimes. Recently elected Bexar County District Attorney Joe Gonzalez, whose jurisdiction includes San Antonio, announced today that his office will no longer prosecute possession of trace amounts of narcotics, such as heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamines under 0.25 grams. In addition, Gonzalez's office will no longer prosecute cannabis possession of less than an ounce. The move follows several other Texas prosecutors' offices that have taken steps to divert resources away from petty drug prosecutions. Dallas County District Attorney John Cruzo announced in April that his office would not prosecute first-time cannabis offenses or trace amounts of drugs under 0.01 grams, and the Travis County DA instituted a similar policy for trace drugs under 0.01 grams that same month. And an amount of drugs that small is basically invisible residue. Quote, "We believe that our resources need to be focused on the most serious violent crimes and criminals, and we have to make decisions on where to put our people and how to use those resources," unquote, said Christian Henriksen, the Bexar County DA's chief of litigation. Quote, "It makes more sense to put them on violent crimes as opposed to small quantities of drugs that have a low conviction rate to start with," unquote. Henriksen says that last year there were 5,000 marijuana cases filed in Bexar County, and he expects the impact of the new policy on marijuana prosecutions to be fairly significant. As Reason reported, petty drug amounts make up the bulk of narcotics prosecutions in Texas. A study by Human Rights Watch and the American Civil Liberties Union found 78% of people sentenced to incarceration for felony drug possession in Texas in 2015 possessed under a gram, roughly the weight of a paperclip. The study's authors found one Texas man was sentenced to 15 years in prison for possession of trace amounts of methamphetamines so insignificant that the drug lab couldn't even assign a fractional weight to it. And again, that guy got 15 years in prison for that. Law enforcement has opposed reform efforts in other Texas counties. Well, of course, that's, you don't want to cut into their civil asset forfeiture abilities, right? Law enforcement has opposed reform efforts in other Texas counties, and Bexar appears to be no different. Area law enforcement officials, granted anonymity by local news station KSAT 12, complained that the new policy was not communicated to them after being instituted. It invalidates their police work, and it prevents them from getting suspects to supply information in other cases. Last year, KSAT reported that 40% of San Antonio's murders in 2018 went unsolved. Wow, 40%. A slightly higher clearance rate than the national average. If local police get tired of arresting people for possessing drug-laced plastic bags, only to see the DA refuse to prosecute them, maybe that would be a good place to channel their energy. There you go. And that is stunning. 40% of the murders in the last year went unsolved in San Antonio. Well, I guess if you're going to kill somebody, that's the place to do it, but wow. So there you go. So I find stories like that encouraging local law enforcement, taking some common sense steps. And by the way, and this is one of the things I say to folks who are very pro-drug war, and there's plenty of you out there. This is one of the things I think you need to think about. Even if you believe that all drugs are bad, and even if it's what you would consider a consensual, no victim, quote unquote, crime, right? Because this is something you're choosing to do to yourself. Well, unless you're selling it to someone else, but in terms of ingesting it, in terms of using it, even if you believe that it's terrible, it's wrong, and you must be punished for it, even if you absolutely believe that, think about this. Is that truly the best use of resources, of law enforcement resources? And one of the things I get pushback on is people say, well, Matt, a lot of these people who get in trouble for, having cannabis or having trace amounts of something else or whatnot. You know, they also did something. They did something else as well. You know, they broke into someone's home to get some things to sell, to pawn, to get money to feed their addiction, or broke into someone's car to do that and whatnot. To which I say, yeah, and that should be prosecuted. But so you prosecute the burglary, you prosecute the break-in, you prosecute the robbery, you prosecute whatever it is they did. Just not the drug use itself. But if somebody does something else, be it theft or violence of any kind or menacing of any kind or a mugging or whatever, yeah, of course you prosecute that. Nobody's saying don't prosecute that. Like, nobody's saying, well, you don't prosecute those people because what they did was connected to their use of a substance or in the, during the course of a transaction regarding that substance. Nobody's saying that. You just don't, but just stop punishing pot smokers, for one thing. And we could get into a whole, I do have some other things I want to get to, but, we could get into we could do a whole show. I think I probably have done entire shows before about this. George Oscar in the Facebook live chat says, like your thoughts on this, Matt. Well, thank you, George. George, you have good taste and thoughts. Is that even a thing, having good taste and thoughts? Rand Paul, who, of course, senator from the great state of Kentucky, I think in 2012, he was named Time Magazine's most interesting man in politics or something. Rand Paul can be terribly disappointing at times when, those of us who would agree with his father, Ron Paul, on things like foreign policy. Rand lets us down sometimes, but sometimes not necessarily. Sometimes he behaves a little bit like his dad. And according to thehill.com, apparently Rand Paul has a big problem with John Bolton and says he is a malign influence in the Trump administration. Now, we have a lot of saber rattling going on, and it looks like we could be. I don't think it's going to happen. But we could be headed toward a military confrontation with Iran. Trump said, we're going to walk away from the Iran nuclear deal, which I think was a terrible mistake. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. It was not a perfect deal, I'm sure. But I have yet to see anything anywhere that suggests that they were not adhering to the terms of that deal. So I think it was foolish to walk away from it. How are you going to get them back to the table now that we've shown ourselves to have been acting in bad faith? And now, and initially it appeared that Iran was going to still, because the EU also was a signatory to that. So they were going to keep that commitment to the EU, even though we had walked away. So the deal was not dissolved. The United States walked away. But now there's a lot of, there seems to be some saber rattling going on with Iran. And, Trump, who, one of my hopes for Trump, even though I'm not a big fan, is, that we would at least have a less militaristic, less interventionist and adventurist foreign policy. I've never gotten the impression that Trump had any particular appetite to be invading other countries. But there's been a lot of saber rattling going on as far as Venezuela, and there's been some going on as far as Iran. And I do believe, as many others do, and apparently Rand Paul does, that some of this may be the influence of John Bolton, National Security Advisor John Bolton, and his very frightening mustache. And I believe his mustache's name is Steve. And the reason I think that is, some of you might remember, I think it was maybe 6 months ago, there was a story out there that Trump kept calling John Bolton Steve instead of John and couldn't get his name right. And my theory has always been that Trump, stable genius that he is, figured out that the mustache is actually Steve. And I believe the mustache controls John Bolton's words and actions and so forth. And it's the mustache that is actually this malevolent force that is trying to push the world into a global thermonuclear Armageddon. And Iran is one of the ways to do that, because I do believe that's a potential flashpoint for World War III. So Rand Paul is speaking up against John Bolton and has had some criticisms of the Trump administration on this. I'm not sure why Senator Rand Paul feels it's okay to stand up to the Trump administration on this particular thing. One of my theories about that is that he might not have been there the day when Trump was inaugurated, and then they handed around that jar, that giant jar, where all the Republicans had to in Congress had to take their testicles, to use the Greek term, and put them into the jar that the White House then keeps in a secret room, and then of course they'll give they'll open the jar and give everything back at the end of the Trump administration. So because typically these folks just go along with whatever Trump says because they're scared of his base. Like with the tariffs, for example. All these tariffs. Republicans used to be against that kind of thing. Republicans used to be the party of free trade, and then Trump came along and said, no, we're not the party of free trade anymore. We're now a party of protectionists. And then all the Republicans in Congress shrugged and said, oh, okay, we're the party of protectionism now, and we're no longer for free trade because that's what Daddy says, and he has our testicles in a jar in the White House, so we can't stand up to him. But I think Rand Paul might, or maybe he got out of it. Maybe he just told Trump, listen, I'm not going to put mine in that jar. I really want to keep mine. And as a physician, I understand the importance of keeping mine, but I promise not to use them very often. Maybe just once in a while, so I still look like I'm not completely beholden to you. But people kind of expect me to be at least a tiny bit libertarian, and I guess Trump probably agreed to that. And Rand Paul got to remain intact, and once in a while he actually uses what the Lord gave him and stands up to the administration. It's quite remarkable, actually. So apparently this is one of those instances. So it says here, again, this is from thehill.com. Senator Rand Paul, Republican of Kentucky, a close ally of President Trump, who has supported the president's desire to pull troops out of the Middle East, says National Security Advisor John Bolton is a malign influence. Interesting, Rand Paul doesn't mention the mustache. I don't think he's figured it out yet. Rand Paul, who believes the U.S. should reduce its military presence in Syria and Afghanistan, says he is alarmed by the recent mobilization of U.S. combat troops to counter what some Trump officials see as a rising threat posed by Iran. Asked about Bolton's role in the recent deployment of an aircraft carrier strike and an Air Force bomber task force, Paul said, quote, I fear that he's a malignant influence on the administration, unquote. Paul believes that Bolton is in a camp of hawks who may be pushing Trump in the direction of war. Well, that's an easy one to figure out. The New York Times reported Monday that Acting Defense Secretary Patrick Shanahan presented a military plan to Trump at a meeting last week calling for the deployment of 120,000 troops to the Middle East at Bolton's request. And by the way, Shanahan, where did he come from? Was it Boeing or Lockheed Martin or one of those? He's a military industrial complex guy. He wants to make sure that, because war is a business, it has little to nothing to do with defending the country. It's all about the money. And that's where Patrick Shanahan came from. So, so of course they're pushing Trump in this direction. And by the way, I hope that some of the Republicans who supported Trump, because one of the pro-Trump arguments I heard a lot of in 2016 was, Hillary's a war hawk, which I would agree. I've always said I think Hillary is fundamentally a neocon and would have been very comfortable serving on the George W. Bush foreign policy team. But, Hillary's a neocon, Hillary's a war hawk, Trump is not, and Trump won't get us into these awful foreign policy entanglements that Hillary might have. And I thought there was some validity to that. For example, Hillary wanted to put a no-fly zone over Syria, which I thought was a terrible idea. Trump said, no, that's a terrible idea. So I actually agreed with Trump on that. But these Republicans who made that argument all of a sudden, these anti-war Republicans, and libertarians, libertarians tend to be anti-war. And here in New Hampshire, there's a strong libertarian movement within the Republican Party. So, so we have some good anti-war folks here. But I hope those libertarians will, and those anti-war Republicans will speak up when Trump plunges us into war, as it looks like he might possibly do, and in a very dangerous situation. This is a very dangerous scenario we're looking at here. This is a nightmare scenario, according to, well, everything I've read, right? Tom Cotton, I think, went on TV over the weekend on the Sunday shows and said, no, it'd be easy. Yeah, right. I hope, again, I know Republicans don't like to stand up to daddy. It's Trump's party now, right? Clearly, we don't like to question him. By we, I mean you. But I hope on this, some of you will have the fortitude to say, hey, we don't like this. I mean, you'll roll over for anything else, whether it's tariffs or whatever else, but, I hope you won't roll over on this. Most of you will. I know Rhonda won't. Rhonda in the Facebook live chat, she voted for Trump, and she says she regrets it now. But like I always say, most Trump supporters I know are incapable of being upset with him about much of anything, except the occasional tweet that they don't like. But other than that, no, it's all good. It's very disheartening, because this is really potentially frightening stuff. We have a call. I'll grab this. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
It's your old pal Fred.
Fred Boenig from the Daily Ripple. How are you, sir?
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed the songs I sent today.
Yes. I'll probably play the other one tomorrow, because I don't think I'm going to get to it today. But yes, wonderful songs.
Well, you were talking about Iraq and Iran.
Yes.
About getting in a war with Iran. Iran is twice the size of Iraq. It has twice as many people.
Yeah.
And it has twice the size military. And we're still in Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
Just pointing that out.
Yeah.
2 days. Tom Cotton said in 2 days, 2 strikes. That's it. 2 days.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
I always wonder what happens on day 4,
Right. Well, I mean, of course they said with Iraq that would be quick and easy, and actually the invasion.
Yeah, we'd be liberators. Remember?
Right, and actually the invasion was quick and easy, but then it's what happened, like you said, what happens after that? Well, what happened after that was we got stuck there, and
right.
I'm very. I mean, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen? Do you think Trump is actually going to take us to war in Iran?
Well, I don't think he actually wants to do it. I think it's Bolton and Cotton.
Right.
I think they're the ones that are pushing for it. I mean, this is one of those things that Tom Cotton, he's the guy who wrote the letter and said we're going to break this deal way back in Obama day. He had 47 senators sign on to it. Let's not forget that he's been on this thing to get back and get after Iran, and some of that may have to do with his, the people who lobby him and pay him, because they're pro-Israel, and the Koch brothers. You see, the Koch brothers make more money when the oil prices are up because they're in the oil business.
Oh,
and so if you can shut down Iran, see, when you let Iran back into selling oil, that kind of made the price of oil go down, right? Because they were putting oil in the market.
Right.
So they have to get that shut down again. I mean, it's never about anything.
Right.
I mean, they don't have a nuke. They even agreed on the third sentence on the agreement was, we will never attempt to even get a nuke.
Right.
I mean, that's on the original agreement. It's number 3.
Right. Right.
So, so we didn't have to do this.
Right.
We did this because they the people who give millions of dollars to their campaigns, this is part of their agenda.
Right. And part of what Trump's agenda too has been, from the moment that he stepped in. I mean, kind of the unofficial mantra of the Trump administration has been, whatever Obama did, we have to undo. Whatever Obama did was bad.
Right.
So.
Right. because Obama mocked him at that press conference.
Oh, at the
press dinner.
The correspondence dinner, yeah, the White House correspondence dinner, yeah.
Yeah, that was it. That was it. That was the end. I'm going to get even with you. I'm going to wreck everything you ever do. And why would we ever believe that because he found out that that Obama had slept in that bed, that he would have prostitutes come in and pee on it? Why would we believe that was possibly he was that petty when he willing to start a war with Iran over it?
Yeah. Well, hopefully not.
Right?
I hope it doesn't come to that. I really
Well, we'll
do.
see.
Yeah.
It's just not a good thing. It's
No.
really bad. And, between that and, telling women what they need to, that they have, they're going to go to jail. You can rape someone, and they can't have an abortion, or they can go to prison, and the guy who performs the abortion can go to prison.
Yeah.
But I guess if you go drive over to Florida, it's okay.
Right. Yeah.
Ugh.
We live in interesting times.
Sorry about that. I don't want it to be so interesting.
I know.
Well, anyway, I just was hoping that, I'm glad you like the songs, and I just wanted to say that people need to understand Iraq is not Iran. Iran is much different country, much more advanced, much bigger military, and twice the size and twice the number of people.
Oh, yeah.
So if if we're only going to be in one place for 14 years, then we can count that if that's only twice, that will only be over there for 28 years.
It's a good way of putting it. Yeah, that's a good reminder.
All right, boss.
All right, Fred. Thank you so much.
All right, talk to you soon.
All right, bye-bye. All right, Fred Boenig from the Daily Ripple. Yeah, I mean, that's a good reminder of the seriousness of this, And it reminds me of something, too, because I have known people over the years who are sort of war hawkish. Oh, I just realized what time it is, but I wonder if the Dions aren't coming in. They're usually here by now. It's strange. We usually start to wrap up by now because they're usually... Wait, what day is it? Yeah, it is Thursday. I wonder if they're not here and just no one told me. But there are people who are very war hawkish who will sort of flippantly say things like, we should just turn the place into a glass bowl or something, meaning, just drop a nuke, which is crazy. But sometimes people who are very war hawkish, who have that mentality, they talk about these things. And I don't mean politicians trying to sell us on it like Tom Cotton. I mean, they do it too, obviously, like Fred and I were saying. Tom Cotton said, oh, yeah, a couple strikes and we'd be able to take them down. And that's, as Fred pointed out, that's crazy. You're talking about a country, again, that's twice the size of Iraq. But, I've noticed, too, over the years, just casual conversations I have with people who are very pro-war, who act like everything's easy. Oh, yeah, just go in there and take them out. No big deal. Turn the place into a glass bowl, whatever. Kill them all, let God sort them out. Just this very casual, callous thoughts and suggestions that people have. And it's like, what? So, I worry that, and I worry that these things that Tom Cotton is saying, or, and these things that they're trying to sell us, they appeal to those kinds of people, and that's how they're able to, that's why it's so easy to sell war. It's very easy to sell war to a country full of very compliant people who have been convinced that war generally is awesome and cool, in USA, and, it's very easy to do that. And it's too bad, because war is not awesome and cool, regardless of what those video games that glorify war try to teach you. War has real life consequences. Yeah, it's 8 minutes of, and the Dions aren't here. They must be off this week. Until I see somebody show up, that's kind of going to be my assumption. Okay. So let's see. So this is what Rand Paul said today. This was today. He said this, quote, "My concern," again, this is from thehill.com, "my concern is that there are people that will overreact to this intelligence and somehow get us involved in a military conflict from which there's no turning back," unquote. We have another call, so we'll grab this really quick. Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed. Who's this?
Hey, it's Eric. To let you know, they're headed to the Snooze and Booze tonight with Peter White and Carol.
You are?
They're going to a charity event.
Are you going to get sloppy drunk?
No, but the Dions, they're going there. Peter White and Carol and Sarah Baldry's going to go. And
I got
the big charity event tonight.
That's why they're not here. Okay, well, now it all makes sense.
Right, I thought I alert you of that. So don't worry, they're alive and well.
All right, Eric. Well, I appreciate the call. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, bye-bye. EZG, Eric Gagnon, calling with some information that was useful and helpful. That deserves an air horn. All right, so we'll conclude at our usual time then. So let's see. So Rand Paul cited another New York Times report that the White House escalated its warnings about a potential attack from Iran or Iranian-backed forces based on photographs of missiles being transported to boats in the Persian Gulf. And about that, Rand Paul said this: the question is that's being done in reaction to our increased presence there and our naming all of the Revolutionary Guards as terrorists. Is this a reaction to our policy, or is it simply an aggressive policy saying we're going to start war? Iran knows you don't start a war with the United States, unquote. That is a great point. So what Rand Paul is saying here is, are we provoking Iran into provoking war? Or, are we trying to get into a war with Iran? Are we poking the bear to try to get into a war with Iran? Are they taking actions to prepare? Because they're getting worried about us going to war with them. They don't want to go to war with the United States. And he's pointing out, look, it's ridiculous. And he's right. It's ridiculous to think that Iran, unless they're suicidal, that they're actually intending to do some sort of first strike against the United States, because that's nuts. Like he said, Iran knows you don't go to war with the United States. So, if they are doing some things that may appear provocative or can be argued are provocative, are they doing those because we're doing things that are provocative? Like, as he pointed out here, declaring that, their military is terrorists, the Revolutionary Guard, they're all terrorists. Or, I think he had pointed out somewhere else, walking away from the Iran nuclear deal. Is that, viewed by the Iranians as provocative? Trump said today that he hopes the U.S. does not go to war with Iran. Rand Paul told reporters in a conference call later today that he's worried that the military buildup could increase the chances of a confrontation that spirals out of control. He said, quote, "I think the most important thing is to put the administration on notice that they do not have congressional permission to go to war with Iran, and we need to make sure we're not involved in anything that is provocative enough to encourage a skirmish that leads to a bigger war," unquote. Paul added that the U.S. should defend its troops and diplomatic facilities and send a clear signal to Iran to expect retaliation if it attacks the U.S. interests. But, as he added, quote, "provocation can occur on both sides, and we need to be wary," unquote. So, I'm glad that he spoke up. I agree with him 100%. And I'm suddenly reminded of, and actually it came up on the show recently, the Gulf of Tonkin, where, we found out, and I always think of this too when I think about conspiracy theories, because, conspiracies do happen. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and I'm not a follower of Alex Jones. In fact, I like to play clips that mock him and so forth, but conspiracies do happen, right? The Gulf of Tonkin, it turned out, we found out, I think he came out publicly and said it maybe a decade ago. Robert McNamara said, yeah, it was BS. It was that situation was, or how did he put it? I'm trying to remember exactly what it was that he said, that we provoked them into attacking us so that we would have an excuse to go to war, essentially. And so I think of that and I wonder, well, you know, a guy like Bolton or a guy like Tom Cotton, are they, you know, do they think that they're smart? For one thing, they might think they're smarter than Trump, which they probably are. And, you know, are they using that to try to maneuver us into a situation where we've provoked the Iranians into doing something that we perceive as aggressive enough that we now have to go to war? You know, and it's all a big con. But anyway, we are out of time. Thank you all for listening today. Thank you, Jenny, for joining me earlier. Thank you to Fred Boenig from the Daily Ripple for calling, and to EZG for calling. And if you missed any part of today's show, it will be up in just a little bit at WMNHradio.org. Thank you to everybody in the Facebook live chat. And I'm out of here for now. I will talk at y'all. Be back tomorrow. Talk to y'all a little bit later. Bye, everybody.